podcast excellence since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network, kingofpodcasts.com.
AI keeps winning. They keep winning lawsuits. They keep beating the government over the bargaining code. So what's the next weapon for publishers? Copyright.
The King of Podcasts radio network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast. Here is the King of Podcasts.
I'm so ashamed of myself. I am now buying stuff from the TikTok shop, and I bought a microphone, one of those little lavalier microphones to use for on the road if I want to use it every once in a while. But the other thing I've also used now is I bought one of those microphone arms I've been putting out there in the TikTok shop. So I bought it. It just came in today, and I have it hooked up to my table that I bought from the TikTok shops. Like I'm really going, Sky Mall and all this shit, and I'm like really ashamed of myself. But it is good. Like this, it works great. So I got it. A little more convenient, so I can just sit here in my nice comfy chair and do another Broadcasters Podcast with all of you. Thanks for sitting in, finding the show as you always do, kingofpodcasts.com, of course, the YouTube channel. And I know I keep changing the website. So I put it back on WordPress again, but I had more time to kind of build it up and do a little bit more to the front end, that front page. So all the episodes, once again, you can find the most latest episodes of all my content right there. You can also find the links, all the icons to go right to the shows. And you can go ahead and look for all the individual pages, and you'll find all the past episodes there. So I did that, make it a little bit easier for everybody. But I also absolutely will tell you, please go ahead and subscribe to the show. If you haven't already done that, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, I never promote those, Spotify, YouTube, and YouTube Music, and all the major podcast platforms. Please make sure to subscribe. Don't miss an episode. And also, if you want, please go through Spreaker, because then any ads that go through in here that you listen to on the program, they go directly to me. I get pocket a little bit of the revenue for this program to help, take care of the show. And, because of the revenue, I can buy a new arm from the TikTok shop, among other things. And just keep building upon this, right? Even my backup microphone I have over here is also from TikTok shop. What can I say? It's like I'm prepared. And I love having all this together. AI. We haven't talked about it in a couple weeks. But it keeps happening, and I can't help but continue to just come back to this story on a regular basis and see what keeps happening here to the publishers and how far along they are hurting themselves on a regular basis right now. Now, if I just look in the last couple of weeks of what I've been doing this program and see how much I have talked about AI regularly on this program, it happens a lot. It's been 5 weeks or so. It was September I did the last show. So about 4 weeks ago, something like that, was the last time I did it. But I feel like almost like once a month I must talk about AI because it's here. Actually, before that, I had to wait until, July. But like I said, there have been a number of episodes I've done regularly on AI because after the strike and after all the movie studios and all the TV and movie setup was already taken care of, I've talked about radio plenty. But one of those stories I have to keep following back on is what AI is doing right now in the publishing world. So a news story that's come in that really says a lot of what's happening right now is the UK and United States Publishers Associations. They came together on a statement on the world of AI worldwide. An international protest, they say, of unlicensed use of copyrighted content by AI systems, which has gathered more than 13,500 signatures. This is from Publishing Perspectives. They put this report out. And so in this statement, it is called the Statement on AI Training. It has one line of text. It says, quote, "The unlicensed use of creative works for training generative AI is a major unjust threat to the livelihoods of the people behind those works and must not be permitted." Now, this is not just publishing. This now also is affecting even those in other spaces. So let's get into it. Now, it's gotten signatures from an international host of professionals in publishing and many other creative industries. Sir Kazuo Ishiguro, an author, actor Kevin Bacon, composer Max Richter, comedian Rosie O'Donnell, Greek historian Peter Frankopan, songwriter Billy Bragg, photographer Andrew Urban, and journalist Dag Edar Trigestad. And there are organizations that have also signed on, the International Publishers Association, Penguin Random House, Universal Music Group, Mary Rasenberger for the United States Authors Guild, David Shelley for the Hatchet Book Group. So what is being said now is that this is from Maria Pallant from the Association of American Publishers. She's taken a prominent position alerting the news media to their engagement with the statement. She says, quote, the AAP is proud to stand with thousands of creators and partner organizations to highlight that human authorship is the basis of generative AI. What is true is that creators operate in service to a well-read, informed, and inspired global public, not the unsanctioned, unregulated profits of big tech companies. It goes without saying that technology collaborations are a key part of publishing, but they're built on lawful licenses and respect, not a land grab. And there are so many more that are in this also here from London. You have the Publishers Association, their licensing services, Independent Publishers Guild, Authors Licensing, Collecting Society, Association of Authors Agents, and the Society of Authors. That's about 10,500 writers on top of that also being involved in all this. So that was a big statement being put out there. A lot of people are very upset about this. And there's been talk this month about it pretty regularly and what people have been saying about it. So in the story that I took for this week's show, they're saying there's a unlicensed use of copyrighted content. So the thing is, what are they going to do to get after the copyright infringement? And how are they going to be used to go after it? Because again, it's just a statement. It's not a lawsuit. It's not a tort reform. It's nothing. We don't know what can be done about this. But again, if you have all these people together, are they going to collectively put money together to go ahead and start attacking on this? Like, there's the thing we got to figure out of what they're going to do. We don't know yet. But we know that there are a lot of people that are very upset about it. And, okay, I understand that. But this is where you're betters. This is where these large companies, from one side, the big tech companies taking advantage, sure. But then the other side that we have of the equation, of the coin, are these big corporations that are running and managing all this content for all these people. We're not even talking about that yet. But there's a lot that can be said about that as well. There's a new report that came out recently on AI and creative industries, and it's called State of Play, Exploring Generative AI's Transformative Effects on the Media and Entertainment Industry. And that's from BMG that put this story together, examining how AI is already being used in broadcasting, entertainment, news, marketing, and publishing, and where those partnerships may be headed. Well, they're getting a little bit late to the party. Again, AI we've been hearing about since 2021, 2022. But now we're here, and because of what's happening to the news industry, basically these book publishers, these authors, actors, all these other creators, they're all coming out of the woodwork trying to hedge off at the pass AI controlling their content. Well, what they're doing right now is what I said before. It's just like venture capital. It's just like vulture capital. I will say it again. AI is just waiting for their opportunity just to go ahead and swoop right in. First on these news publishers, these magazines and newspapers right now that are hurting, that are hemorrhaging money right now, laying off thousands of people in the last year. 8,000 jobs I think I saw in the last year, according to Pointer. We'll talk about that story in a minute. Because of all that, these big corporations can only do so much. They're micromanaging and cutting, cost cutting and downsizing as much as they can to where they can't operate properly. So what happens is you're going to get to a point where they're at right now. Some of these news magazines, these newspapers are all struggling right now, and they have tried to reach out to the government to try to get things happening. Like Australia and Canada, we'll talk about those stories as well, how they've tried to use a news media bargaining code to force, from the federal government side, to force payment upon these big tech companies for use of their content. Because they say they're scraping, they're taking up content, and some of their summaries are going to make it much harder for these publishers to get traffic to their websites, or for them to buy newspapers and increase their circulation, or to partake in the advertising that they're trying to get as part of their content, which are pop-ups and paywalls and all this stuff they got all around the place. The one thing is that, again, with the digital disruption, the technology side has the leverage. They have the power. They're the dominant force. So when radio has struggled, streaming right now takes the day, and now streaming has the music industry at their heels, just hoping to try to go and make enough money to get something out of this. But, the traditional ways of trying to get music on the radio, we've talked about extensively on the program the last couple of weeks. Well, you got to go through tech. You got to go through streaming to get your music out there and heard. It goes through albums, it goes through everybody else. And only a select few go to the secondary market of radio and get there. Again, just listen to last week's episode. But for this week, we look at the fact that now we're at the point where the news publishers, you just looked at the last couple of years, COVID was a business killer. The media took the biggest brunt from COVID, and we've talked about it. I was doing this show before COVID happened, and we could see gradually all across the board, all the jobs getting let go. And because nobody in-house, nobody in person working in the offices, downsizing, all this that was going on, and the recovery efforts, no. And when you were having all those people inside their homes, more accustomed, streaming became much more prominent for video and audio. And then people are not going out to go pick up newspapers or magazines. They're going out to the stores because of the COVID, because of the mask mandates, because of social distancing, everything. All of it ruined the industry. And they're not going to be able to recover. And so when you see just in the last year, roughly this, in the past 12 months, you have seen where AI companies, Perplexity, OpenAI with ChatGPT, Google, Facebook with Meta, Twitter with Grok. I mean, look, they're all doing their thing right now. And eventually, they are taking certain deals to have the publishers go ahead and get paid. They're giving them pretty much an a la carte deal to have access to their archives. And then eventually, they'll be able to go ahead and write their own stories. Journalism needs to understand that you're not going to be able to just do traditional journalism as you have. It's going to be very difficult. And there's a lot of reasons why. I mean, number one, we know that there are certain things that go on within a newsroom right now where, if you're going to be in the corporate end of these big, large media establishment corporations, to do news, you're going to have to follow a narrative. You might have to show a significant bias, just to go ahead and play along, to get along and be able to go ahead and continue to be a part of the system. You're going to have to go ahead and consider all those things. And then eventually, you're at the point where you're going to say to yourself, well, what happens next? Everybody's going to struggle right now. It's a very difficult situation for everyone involved. Everyone. So we know that AI is being used more and more. Look, AI being used in radio, but let me tell you, it's not going to work. As I said, radio, honestly, it can withstand what AI is going to do. I really believe that. Yes, in the most simplest of media. You would think that radio, just because it's an audio component, that you would be able to go ahead and have AI help to control everything. No, you can do it for the automation of the processes, sure. An algorithm can run certain things, but the human component, you can't replace. Radio needs that. It's a necessity to make that work. Think of all the talk radio stations you have around the country. They won't be able to operate if they didn't have somebody talking for them. You're not going to create some human component that's going to do talk radio or going to be a DJ doing a radio station. Like, you need input. And you just can't take anyone out there. You need personality. It's personality driven. You have to be able to do something. And you're not going to be able to go ahead and engage with listeners the way you could. So radio, I believe, that's why I'm still holding out for hope. And I will continue to do that for as long as possible. So into the story now from Bertelsmann, BMG, this German media conglomerate, and their story from LitHub, I'm taking from it. So they're saying here that, quote, the report is fawning and unskeptical. The introduction makes clear the writers have drunk the Kool-Aid. They say that we believe that generative AI can enable a new era of innovation and reshape these industries. The report specifically calls out Hatchet, HarperCollins, and Macmillan Education, who are contracting technology providers like OpenAI, Jasper, and Google for content creation. Yeah, we already know. Some of these companies are already in bed with AI right now. Or they're building their own proprietary AI tools. There's an automated ad tool that Penguin Random House has now, a program called Book Boost, a platform that leverages first-party data, automation, machine learning, and AI to fully automate the process for Facebook and Instagram advertising, or whatever. Hatchet putting out a gimmicky book of poetry written by an OpenAI generator. Amazon trying to use generative AI to summarize product reviews, including those on books. The report's conclusion says the publishing sector has seen AI adoption in areas like automated content generation for marketing and personalized recommendations, but the technology's impact on the creative process remains limited. As always, it's been best seen as a labor issue, according to LitHub, but if you think a poem made like a hot dog of stolen words sounds interesting, that's fine. But no one should lose their job over that experiment. This entire report makes clear to me that the powers that be see AI as a way to make more money by squeezing down their cost of labor. Yes, the corporate folks are going to use this, and they're going to lose their asses as a result of this. Do you understand this? They'll take the money. They'll take what they can to continue to thrive, but just a little bit longer. Until the AI companies are able to go ahead and deem necessary, okay, we have taken you apart. You are vulnerable to us. And now we're going to bail you out. You can give us your proprietary intellectual property, and then we will take it from you, pennies on the dollar. And AI will go ahead and take over. They will find not journalists, but data input. And the journalism industry, as you know it, is going to change. There will still be journalism, but you'll just have fact finders. You'll have information gatherers. But they will not be the ones writing the story. No. You'll be lucky if you still get to do that. Unless you're independent. But if you're working for a big outlet, yeah, AI is going to do it for you. Because then the boundaries, the guidelines, standards and practices, these big corporate media establishments, they're going to want to continue to have control over that. So they won't trust human error. They will trust AI. Believe that. Now, in this study, they also say that the film and TV industries have been slower to adopt AI as the industry paused to consider the role during the writers and actors strikes of 2023. This is an insane characterization of the situation last year. It makes it sound like Hollywood, out of its own concern and goodwill, decided to take a break and think about AI while they had some free time. No, we know it's not like that. But LitHub is pretty triggered by this whole story, this entire report. So they're saying here in this story from LitHub that AI still can't make anything that's very good. It's destroying Google's search engine, and workers are pushing back. It's not just the celebrities who are complaining and suing, but also the vast, invisible tech underclass that makes this glittering promise future possible. So they're saying there's exploitation here, and Bertelsmann is complicit in this. Okay, that's what they're saying about it. Now, there are publishers that are getting together and talking about it. There was a Digiday Publishing Summit a couple weeks ago, and publishers are confronting the AI era. So they're talking about it. So some of the comments that are being said, number one, we can't give away our content for free. Oh, these are closed-door town hall sessions. One publisher described the present situation between publishers and generative AI companies as one of the closed-door town hall sessions during the recent summit. They said ChatGPT, Perplexity, and the like are effectively the new Facebook, Google, etc. But the most apt aspect of the publisher's statement were the words "sort of." The platform era giving the way to the AI era offers a do-over, sort of, for publishers. Unlike Facebook, etc., OpenAI and its ilk are making early offers to pay for some publishers for people to access the publisher's content through the AI company's platforms. Hearst is the most recent publisher now to announce such a content licensing deal with OpenAI. Let's go and talk about that real quick. VentureBeat actually reports about this. So the same people that bring you Cosmopolitan, Hearst organization, or Hearst Corporation, they're going to start working with this now. This is a very old brand, by the way. This particular company owns Cosmopolitan, the sex and lifestyle magazine aimed at young women, as well as Esquire, Car and Driver, Country Living, Good Housekeeping, Popular Mechanics, and many more. 25 brands in the U.S., 175 websites, more than 200 magazine editions worldwide. I actually was a former employee of the Hearst Corporation. I worked on one of the TV stations. Full disclosure. The content will be also, they have Houston Chronicle, San Francisco Chronicle, Elle, and Women's Health as well. The content will be clearly attributed with appropriate citations and direct links to Hearst's original sources, ensuring transparency according to the brands. So that goes along with the long list of media publishers that have already struck content licensing deals with OpenAI. Let's go back to some of those already. We talked about Hearst now. We had Condé Nast back in August, The Atlantic back in May, Vox Media in May, Meredith Dotdash in May, Financial Times in April, Axel Springer in December 2023, the Associated Press in July 2023, the American Journalism Project in July 2023, and the Wall Street Journal, New York Post, and the News Corporation in May 2024. Jeff Johnson, who's president of Hearst Newspapers, emphasized the critical role that professional journalism plays in the evolution of AI. Quote, as generative AI matures, it's critical that journalism is created by professional journalists to be at the heart of all AI products. Hearst Magazine's president, Debbie Cicciarella, says the partnership will allow Hearst to help shape the future of magazine content while preserving the credibility and high standards of the company's journalism. Now, in this story, they also say that some critics argue that licensing content to AI platforms could potentially lead to competition as AI systems improve and become more capable of generating content that rivals traditional journalism. Bingo. It's been what I've been thumping on this bully pulpit for a year. They will compete with these newspapers and magazines eventually, and they will take them over. Because they will have their proprietary intellectual property. They will have their archives. They will have their claws into your infrastructure. It's logical. So these companies, they're signing these deals, and they're going to basically sign away their IP eventually, because they're taking the last bit of pay, that last bit of money, that last loan, basically, before they go ahead and go away. You know, it's what's going to happen. So all these publishers are actively embracing AI as a means of staying competitive in an increasingly digital landscape. Yeah, desperation. OpenAI, Perplexity, and all these others, they are coming into this from a position of strength. And all these publishers are in a position of weakness. Didn't want to say I told you so, but you know, there was something for me when I used to talk about having a show that was more about creative, not corporate. This is what happens when you have a corporate entities that run all these outlets. And the digital disruption that has been going on since I talked about in this program in 2018 has come to roost. We're seeing it more and more. Since AI became much more prominent and much more useful, and people are using it every day, I use it every day now. Who thought I would go and adopt to that so quickly, but I did. So does everybody else. Back to the Digiday story. Google has touted the traffic of AI overviews that they're sending to publishers, and some publishers are seeing some similar referral gains from Perplexity. But while some publishers may see the sky starting to clear after years of platform referral traffic declines, others are feeling lost in the fog. Quote, I found that it's difficult for smaller publishers to get those meetings to discuss content licensing and revenue sharing deals with these AI companies when there's no clear path to contact someone. They're not typically coming to us. You're correct. Who needs the money? That's why they're doing this. Although the AI companies have struck licensing deals with some publishers, they seem unwilling to open their pocketbooks to all. Yeah, they're going to play hard to get, of course. Varun Shetty, the head of media partnerships at OpenAI, said this week the platform does not intend to strike ad revenue sharing deals with publishers for its Search GPT product, and that instead publishers will be compensated with significant incremental traffic from new audiences. This is according to a story from Press Gazette. Now, there was one particular town hall session that Google had reached out to publishers that had not opted into this Google extended control that permits Google to train its AI models on publisher sites. The publisher told a member of Google's team that it would opt in if the publisher receives better attribution, traffic, and a share of revenue in exchange. Quote, if it's only a visibility play, that doesn't really move the needle. Right. They don't want to just have it where, okay, after you get people to go ahead and look at your AI and then maybe secondarily go to the publisher's website. No, they want to get something in return for that. These publishers still think they have leverage. It's funny. And what did Google say to that? Let's say what Digiday says. The publisher says, quote, they just took a lot of notes. The person seemed a little bit surprised that we would expect something out of it. We did point out to the other conversations we had in which AI companies would compensate the publisher with credits to use their AI models and or a share of the revenue. At the end of the day, we can't give away our content for free, and that didn't seem to be completely understood. Bam. So Google could go here, took some notes. Okay, this is what they're going to say. All right. And listen to this publisher being so delusional. We're a little bit surprised that we would expect something out of it. And then the bluff here. We did point to the other conversations we had, right? So all conversations, just chatter. It's not a deal. It's not a deal. You didn't get a deal. You think you're still, because of the legacy that you are, you think they need you. They're just doing something smart. These generative AI companies, these tech companies, they're just taking advantage of the fact that why do they need to build this all from scratch themselves? You have all this intellectual property, all these legendary outlets that are hemorrhaging and suffering and bleeding out cash. And here comes AI to the rescue. Because once they are done with you, you've built this brand. Like for Hearst, they've built this brand, going back to William Randolph Hearst, right? How the reason they built the Citizens Kane character and, Orson Welles did the role in the late 30s, right? Think about it. This 100-plus-year-old brand of all these publications. Why would Google or Perplexity or OpenAI in the first place, why would they go ahead and try to build those kind of sites themselves and find AI? When all they got to do is just take the information from all these legacy outlets, work with them, pay them for a while. Once they get all their information retained and they are able to get in new people that, the Hearst Corporation and their divisions can't hire, then OpenAI would just do it themselves. And then another person says that, quote, what we have to realize is that we can't rely on other platforms to send us traffic. We have to create the demand loop itself. How are you supposed to do that? How do you expect that to happen? So let's get into this story that I didn't get a chance to go and talk about yet about the media and the amount of jobs that are going away. The Pointers Institute talked about the news desert problem continuing to worsen with little relief in sight. They quote a new Medill study estimating that 7,000 newspaper jobs, about a third of them in newsrooms, were lost in 2023. The U.S. has seen 127 newspaper closings in the last year. Add that to the 1,500 counties of the combined 55 million residents that have no or only one source of local news. So the Medill School at Northwestern University put out the annual State of Local News report. Now, there have been outlets that have been able to go ahead and fill the role of local news. 740 nationally networked local sites like Patch, Axios Local, and States Newsroom, they are trying to provide coverage for all 50 states. Federal pandemic subsidies of employment in 2021 and 2022 kept job numbers high. Yeah, they were being propped up at the many newspapers that received the aid. But once this expired, it became easier to save on expenses by letting people go. Right. So they held on for dear life, and then they couldn't handle anything after that. They couldn't retract and just recover where they were from previously. Paid digital subscriptions grew during the pandemic due to intense demand for local information. Papers hoped to hold the audience, but the retention fell short because everyone went back to normal. Economizing has frequently included outsourcing printing and closing press rooms, and now papers are getting shutting down the distribution departments, outsourcing delivery to the U.S. Postal Service. Both trends cut away large numbers of non-Jews jobs. Yeah. How about those people that used to do the job of, throwing the newspaper on your front porch? No, that's gone. Again, outsourcing delivery to the U.S. Postal Service. Audience building has been especially challenging for several years as the big digital players, led by Meta Facebook, reduced story referrals. And when they talk about grants and other big donators to try to go ahead and keep these publications alive, that there is an expanding philanthropic sector. And the qualifier that 97% of grants and 99% of the overall money goes to metropolitan areas. Proposals for federal assistance are stalled, a positive that as more states are implementing government subsidies on their own. Yeah, they got to be propped up by the government. Is that good? Wired Magazine also talked about this a few weeks ago, that OpenAI, because of their deals now with publishers, they're making these publishers stand off a bit now. They're not as aggressive at attacking them as they once were. The generative AI boom has sparked a gold rush for data and a subsequent data protection rush for most websites, news websites anyway, in which publishers sought to block AI crawlers and prevent their work from being training data without consent. Apple debuted an AI agent this summer, and a slew of top news outlets swiftly opted out of Apple's web scraping using the robots exclusion protocol, robots.txt. There are so many new AI bots on the scene that it can feel like playing a whack-a-mole to keep up. That's the other part they're dealing with. That there are a lot of places that are finding a way to get themselves from getting scraped. OpenAI's GPT bot has been the most name recognition and most frequently blocked in competitors like Google AI. The number of high-ranking media websites using robots.txt to disallow OpenAI's GPT bot dramatically increased from its August 2023 launch, then steadily rose from November 2023 to April 2024, according to an analysis of 1,100 popular news sites by AI detection startup Originality AI. So there's been a fluctuation because they're now making deals with these companies. No more scraping when they're just making deals and they got money and they can spend on it. When companies enter into partnerships and give permission for their data to be used, they are no longer incentivized to barricade it. So it would follow that they would update their robots.txt files to permit crawling. Making enough deals and the overall percentage of sites blocking crawlers would almost certainly go down. Some outlets unblocked crawlers on the very same day they announced a deal. This goes back to the SEO days I used to go and talk about with Webmaster Radio, man. I've worked on that. This is all very familiar to me. But it's a matter that AI is able to go and do what they do right now for crawling and machine learning, which has been going on for years, by the way. This has been experimented and tested for a long time. Just the fact we got the artificial intelligence now is interesting. It's fascinating how this all worked out. So as we said, OpenAI has struck a deal with 12 publishers, and most have updated their robots files, with a few exceptions. There are a few notable outlets that have unblocked OpenAI's web crawler despite no partnerships. So as we've talked about on the program, the constant issues for journalism to survive at the behest of generative AI, they have tried to play every game in the book to try to hold on to their business model before taking the money. We've all talked about that. The court cases. The recent issues of trying to go ahead and get the news bargaining code in play to do that. There's a new story now from in Australia, a big story about that, about the news media bargaining code and trying to put this out for Australian publishers to get paid for news. And this news media bargaining code being enforced on Facebook and Google is broken, according to Australia and the Joint Select Committee on Social Media in Australian Society. They recommend a digital affairs ministry with responsibility for the coordination of regulation to address the challenges and risks presented by digital platforms. That punishing Meta for withdrawing funding for news in Australia might do more harm than good. Right. See, playing this game, you're not going to win. Given Meta's decision to not renew deals under the News Media Bargaining Code and the deprioritization of news on Meta platforms, the committee recommends that the Australian government establish a short-term transition fund to help news media businesses to diversify and strengthen alternative income streams and news product offerings. So yes, the government has to assist now. They're going to bail out the publishers, while Facebook and Meta give you a big FU, big middle finger. The inquiry says that Meta claims that news accounts for an ever-decreasing portion of its content, it's not necessary to carry it at all. This report says the committee heard compelling evidence from digital publishers that designation to force payment to publishers might not only be ineffective, but also do harm to Australian society if it performs. If platforms, particularly Meta, block news altogether, thereby depriving users from the carriage of news media, which plays a crucial role in underpinning democratic society. The committee supports further exploration of must-carry requirements to social media platforms, and the further exploration should include an assessment of any legal or regulatory barriers to such a requirement. So, the parliamentary inquiry was established to report on the influence and impacts of social media on Australian society. It came out with this report. The inquiry examined issues like age verification, online safety, algorithms, recommender systems, the impacts on the mental health of users, lack of accountability on social media platforms, and the privacy and data issues inherent in using social media. Nicholas Shilton from Broadsheet Media told the inquiry that this allowed platforms such as Meta to take control of the economics of internet content. Yeah, see, you mess with the government wants to mess with these guys. They don't care. They can take their business elsewhere. Now, Shilton says they do that very effectively. And when you control the distribution, you control the commerce, and you control the economics. That's what they've done so effectively. Now they decided they don't need us anymore, so they're happy to shut the door. Another media professional, Mark Sneesby, CEO of Nine Entertainment, told the inquiry that digital platforms have become unavoidable trading partners for news media outlets. Quote, over a number of years, Meta has used the content for media organizations to build a scale audience reaching most of the Australian population, creating the unavoidable business partner and a dependency on that distribution channel by media businesses, right? Dependency. You are now behooving upon this generative AI platform from these tech companies. They are winning, and they keep winning. And the Australian government, thinking they're going to do something here, create some kind of ministry here to control what's going to be done, they can do whatever they want. I mean, if Google, Meta, or Facebook, or whoever else don't want to operate in Australia, they can very well damn do so. Who's going to stop them? Are they being obligated to do something now? No. They said they can take their ball and go home. Again, like Nicholas Shilton says, they don't need us anymore, so they're happy to shut the door. Sounds like Teddy Swims. So I show you the door. It's pretty much just like that, right? Now, because of this, another story that came out, I didn't get to talk about this until now. The Neiman Lab put out a story back in September that because of the news marketing code agreements in Australia winding down, they talked about, what about a tech tax? Would that be a fair way to make Google and Meta pay for the news to distribute and profit from? A tech tax. So we know that Google's already mounted full-on campaigns against code-type legislation in Brazil, South Africa, California, Indonesia, and other countries where it's been proposed. Meta pulling news distribution out of Australia and also doing it in Canada. Google saying they'll reportedly sign one-year deals with publishers. What will come next? So media reports suggest the government is considering a levy on tech companies. And so the free market is going to be the free market. So there have been attempts to try to get a global agreement to raise corporate taxes, an agreement that would have prohibited digital taxes. The U.S. government, influenced by tech giants, they are strongly opposed to such taxes. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has spent a good deal of time calling up her counterparts, telling them to not impose taxes. The U.S. has also blocked the global agreement on corporate taxes. Many countries have included to either keep or adopt digital service taxes. Levies on streaming services to fund local content have been put in place in France, Switzerland, Canada, and Portugal, and are coming soon to Spain. And they're being discussed in Australia. But no government has used the funds raised from digital service taxes directly to support journalism. Right. Because they're going to do the tax. That money's not going to the journalists. It's not going to these publishers. No. Well, that's why they had the bargaining code. Hopefully would be able to take care of that problem. But they said here that the Australian version of the news media bargaining code doesn't fully resolve the problem of power imbalances between the large social media firms and the publishers, and there were no requirements to spend the money on journalism. So they think a tax on tech would address these shortcomings. Good luck with that. It's just like the federal government anyway. You think the taxes are going to go to something they actually are going to spend it on? You don't know what they're going to spend the money on. Come on. Don't be so naive. I'm not being political here. I'm just making a point. We know there is frivolous spending in the federal government. That's pretty obvious there. And that goes on both sides. That's why we have a $35 trillion in debt. Just making that point. And then you ask yourself, okay, so the money's not going towards the debt, which would be very important. No, where's that tax money going? If you tried to go ahead and find out where all the tax money is going, incredible. Impossible to find out, too. So don't worry about that part. Publishers are going to try to find their way to get themselves around to what they can do to move forward. They're going to try. Good luck with that. Now, here's what's more important. How about companies that are kind of trying to work with AI and get into the game? How about those trying to go ahead and recruit and prepare the workforce for AI in the future? There's a startup that came out, and the Observer talked about this. A startup building an algorithm to pay creators for their work used to train AI. ProRata AI is a startup founded by a pioneer of the early internet monetization model. Has a similar algorithm to compensate publishers, authors, and other creators whose work is to train generative AI. It's created an algorithm that can review an AI-generated output, identify the source of information based on novel facts and textual styles, calculate how much each source contributed to the response, and the percentage are then used to cut checks to these creators at the end of every month, a model that, in theory, could help protect the livelihoods of creatives and prevent future lawsuits around intellectual property. So think about it. These possibly journalists can go ahead and take advantage of this, be content creators here, to enhance AI and work on reviewing AI generated content. That's pretty good. The startup has raised $25 million from venture capital firms Mayfield Fund, Prime Movers Lab, Revolution Ventures, and Idea Lab Studio in a Series A funding round in August. And they're going to showcase their algorithm in this month with an AI-powered search engine. Starting at $19 a month, the engine will monetize queries through advertisements and subscription payments. And 50% of the revenue will go to ProRata. The other half will be split proportionally across creators. That sounds pretty good. So keep in mind that. Look at that if that comes up. For journalists that need to go and find some work, that might be the next place to go. And now the competition that was not being done properly by these publishers, now they're going on by the AI companies. A la Perplexity. Perplexity is looking for news allies as it's seeking to challenge Google and their AI. Aravind Srinivas said that he hopes to collaborate with news publishers which accuse the Google challenger of freeloading off their work. So he spoke on stage at a Wall Street Journal tech conference in California, and this is after the New York Post filed a lawsuit against Perplexity saying they were guilty of massive copyright infringement and trademark violations. He says, quote, "We were very surprised about the lawsuit because we wanted to have a conversation. I'm here to make it very clear that I would love to have a commercial contract. And that Google's model of directing traffic to websites, raking money among the way from ads or sponsored results. He's criticizing him. He laid out a vision of Perplexity's AI insightfully answering online queries and sharing ad revenues with sources cited by the search engine process. Well, he's not going to go do deals like OpenAI or Google. They just want to try to give a cut. Now, are these publishers going to take that? I mean, are they going to want to work with them after the incendiary and maybe a little bit dishonest on the thoughts of the publishers? Do you want to go and work with them now and trust them to go and give you a proper cut of what you're getting out of this? They want to do this revenue share inspired by Spotify. But Srinivas right now wants to be able to do this deal here and hopefully get Perplexity, which has been losing money, to become profitable in 3 to 5 years. Quote, "I would rather figure out a model where we can grow together, where our financial success rewards you, than just try to solve my problem by licensing content and moving on." Perplexity, by the way, is backed by Amazon billionaire Jeff Bezos and AI juggernaut NVIDIA. But another group trying to come into play, big tech companies or big tech propped up companies and what they're doing. So keep trying to figure out what you will on what's going to work to try to get all these companies up from under the AI thumb, pressing them down and holding them from being successful or being able to do anything at all. And the industry rags in the media in Hollywood have also been talking about this as well. Hollywood Reporter says how damaging are AI news summaries to publishers. They say that the battles in the AI world have largely revolved around the use of copyrighted content to train large language models, but publishers also take issue with the AI firms ripping off their reporting in response to search queries. So here's the legal context they put in here in the Hollywood Reporter. Under intellectual property laws, facts aren't copyrightable. It's the arrangement and composition of facts that are protected. That means that journalists are free to report common details without concern of infringement, as long as they aren't copying excerpts word for word. That principle is among the reasons the Times may face an uphill battle in their lawsuit against OpenAI. Through the production of evidence of ChatGPT generating verbatim responses of its articles may get it over the hump. Fair use, which allows for works to be utilized in certain circumstances without a license, will be a key battleground. Publishers have reason to worry. More than a decade ago, the normalization of tech companies carrying content created by news organizations without directly paying them, cannibalizing readership and ad revenue, precipitated the decline of the media industry. Remember, these companies were already hemorrhaging for the last decade, as this story says. With the rise of generative AI, these same firms threatened to further tilt the balance of power between big tech and news. No, Hollywood Reporter, let's rewrite that. They're going to make the publishers go extinct. Literally going to do that. And then New Yorker and their Intelligencer put out a story saying that can the media survive? Big tech, feckless owners, cord cutters, rest of staff, smaller audiences, and the return of print? So a bunch of executives, 57 of the most powerful people in media, spoke with the New Yorker about this issue, because now they're talking about trying to be curious to understand how the news media is surviving in a time of imploding business models and record public distrust. And I don't talk about that much, but yes, the trust of the media, these legacy outlets, it's very clear what they've been doing. I don't need to talk about bias. I'm talking about when the National Enquirer was taken out of business, tabloid journalism, yellow journalism, trying to go ahead and shock and awe and get people upset and get them angry and trigger people. These news publications have decided to go and do that. So by gaslighting, by projecting, by upsetting, at one point, a portion of the base that have grown to realize the bullshit they've been put in, they're now locked out of the programming and brainwashing. And the other side that's still caught in this endless cycle of trauma that the news publications have created and caused. Thank you, COVID. Some executives they spoke to are in the business of keeping legacy institutions like the New York Times and the Washington Post viable. Some are trying to build new companies like the Puck, Ankler, or the Free Press. And some are sole proprietors of their own brands via newsletters and audio. So they looked at the news media, the organizations, and the individuals responsible for producing and distributing information to the public with their concerns, politics, or fashion or sports. And because news organizations are obviously no longer the only places, people get their news today. We didn't just look at traditional news outlets. So they also looked at other places where people get their news. So here's the question they're asking about. Which news organizations are struggling most to find their footing, and which have found to figure out how to find an audience? Can any of those companies get to pay people to pay for the journalism? What's the point of print? Are Facebook, Google, and X the enemies of the press, or still somewhat its salvation? What's happened to the industry that scaled up to manufacture clickbait? They even said it out there. Listen, manufacture clickbait. And who's going to train the next generation of journalists? Is getting 9,000 steady paying readers better than trying to reach a mass audience? Can anyone besides TikTok and Facebook even reach a mass audience these days? One question that was emerging was the ability to influence culture or shape perspectives, as once was common in this business. Yeah, once internet came in, it's a different culture out there. Like seriously, if you're looking at what you're seeing online and the programming that's over there, compared to what you've been fed all these years on your rabbit ears or your cable box or your newspapers or your magazines that you've opened up, to what you see now online, totally different. It's like a different world. It's more interesting as well, because there's something to be said about the evolution of these spaces. You just can't be shiny and neat and have all these interesting people on TV that we've seen over and over regurgitate the same things, give us low-hanging fruit, and play to the lowest common denominator. No, we can't have that anymore. We can't. So they still found optimism about the media business and its future. Even those who are gloomy about the state of the industry see a lot of good work being done in their shops and those of their rivals. One editor chief put it and says, quote, Everyone who's not having fun and just doing it 20th century stuff is so boring. It's too much work not to have fun in it. The media universe will keep transforming, and some changes will be for the better. 5 years from now, we'll all be different because it feels like we're on the cusp of some crazy new thing. There's a long story got in here that they talk about. So all these big publishers are starting to talk about what they can do. First of all, how they can make money. The new business idea. One person says a sustainable business model for journalism is going to need people willing to pay for 5 or 7 or 10 new subscriptions instead of 1 or 2. No one's going to do that. In the subscription business, niche is a new scale. Some longtime media executives find the new world befuddling. Quote, I'm surprised that people are okay with a subscription model where they don't have that many listeners or viewers, but are making money, so they're just good with it. The Substack writers, people with Patreon podcasts. My generation was wired completely different. We wanted to be read or listened to by as many people as possible. Now this is like, I'm totally cool with having 9,000 diehard fans. Right. Apple News has essentially created an iPhone-based newsstand with actual human editors, culling news from a variety of sources for its users, some of whom pay for access to journalism that publishers only offer to subscribers. Going back to a very old-fashioned skill of human creation of what you're going to highlight. But again, $12.99 a month. Way too much. CNN, by the way, didn't even talk about the fact that CNN.com will now be going behind a paywall. They're introducing a subscription plan at $3.99 a month. So they're hoping that a fraction of the 150 million unique monthly viewers will choose to pay. Will it make a windfall? Now, the Intelligencer put a long story out there, but I'm not going to go ahead and continue to go on this right here. But I thought that was enough to go ahead and take out of it just to go ahead and, appreciate. And as I wrap things up, I'll give one more story here just to go ahead and wrap it up. And a story that came out about a month ago about generative AI depending on quality journalism and that they should pay for it. And what she wrote here was that journalists, quote, can learn from other industries such as music where both the artists and the publishers have worked out arrangements. This is Anya Schifrin, author of AI and the Future of Journalism, published for the World Association of News Publishers. So let them figure out how they're going to do that. And come back next week for the Broadcasters Podcast. Remember, content is king, and to control your content is in your hands.